Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
And you're very welcome along to this week's edition of Friday Night Racing. It's Gilroy and Johnny Ward with you every Friday afternoon. We stream live at 3 o'clock on all of OTB's social channels. The best place to get us these days is on the OTB Sports app. And then every Friday evening from 8 o'clock, we're on Off the Ball on News Talk as well. We'd love to hear from you. You can get us by text if it's on Friday evening on 53106, or you can WhatsApp us during the day, 0879 180 180, particularly if you've got any questions for our guest today, who's Paul Nolan, who we'll speak to in just a moment. You can also, of course, leave comments on the YouTube channel for us. Today, it being Halloween weekend, we are dressing up to support hashtag Trick or Treat for Temple Street to raise funds for equipment for the little patients of Temple Street Hospital, and we'd love you to join us. You can get on to otbsports.com/donate, and we're trying to raise some cash there for a very good cause. That's why I look as ridiculous as I do today. Johnny is not actually there at the moment because I think he's gone off to put on his costume. So in the meantime, Paul, good afternoon to you. How are you getting on?
How are you, Ger? How are things?
Well, I look a bit ridiculous, but apart from that, all in a good cause.
Absolutely. I unfortunately, now you didn't give me time. I didn't realise what you were doing. Only for that, I'd have got one of my wife's hats or dresses there, and I'd have looked at her.
I was going to say, what do you reach for? An old Wexford jersey? Maybe you could pretend to be Tony Doran or something.
Absolutely.
Come here. Recently, we've been talking about Princess Zoe and the effect that a horse can have on a yard. And listening to Tony Mullins talk about it, it was this kind of magical moment that the horse has galvanised the whole place and given everybody this incredible sense. And I wondered if, from talking to you before at just before the Dublin Racing Festival was on, if latest exhibition has done something similar, maybe not quite at the same scale just yet for you guys, but who knows, you know, because obviously the latest exhibition journey has just started. Is it similar enough?
Yeah, well, there's always pressure when you have something decent, and you only realise, when you get down to small numbers and staff starts leaving you and owners leave you, and then something like Princess Zoe and stuff comes along for Tony, or like a disc guy comes along for us, and it's just a lifesaver really. And then it puts a bit more pressure because you're wrapping them up in cotton wool a little bit, and you're sort of doing extra little things to try and minimise anything happening to him. And it's been the same with Tony. He'll wrap up this one in cotton wool, and David will make a decision now. I think they've nearly the decision already made whether they're going to go jumping or not jumping. I think it's nearly not jumping now at this stage. So it just goes to show you, how things can be resurrected by an animal, by one good animal in the yard. And
did you know straight away from the first experience with this one that it was something special, or was it only once you kind of get to the racetrack and see the progression, and even then you're kind of like, is this as good as we think it is, or did you know on the gallop straight away?
No, we there's no way we knew on the gallop straight away. It wasn't until he galloped on grass really that we knew. He's a very laid back individual at home, and there's no way would you count him a grade one horse or a decent animal at home. He's very workmanlike, always behind the bridle. So the answer to that question would be no. We didn't realise until he went away galloping on grass that he was sort of a little bit special. In a way, that's kind of even better, because the shock and surprise and joy must be like, holy moly, look at this. Yeah, well, that's the norm. Like, normally animals that worked very well at home, they're either really, really good, or if your gallop was a furlong or 2 furlongs longer, you'd find out that they weren't any good. And normally the flashy ones are not the ones that are the good ones. Right. I think we have Johnny Ward with us. We can say good afternoon to you, Johnny. How are you?
Good afternoon, Ger. Sorry, I had to find something to put on there. I forgot it was actually Halloween. I don't know what this is, but it's probably vaguely political anyway, and probably left-wing.
What is it?
It looks like Peg Sears, who became like a fan of Basque nationalism, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's a flag. You've wrapped yourself in a flag.
Yeah, I used to live with a few characters who would collect these flags. I think I have a Vietnamese flag on top of me, an old Vietnamese flag, and we have the Basque flag. I couldn't find Anthony in the 2 minutes or so that I actually remembered I had to dress up today, so sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, very good. We're talking with Paul Nolan this week, obviously. Friday Night Racing and Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing, and the hashtag is every racing moment. Paul, you talked about cotton wool. Obviously, the cotton wool had to come off this week, and a seasonal reintroduction to latest exhibition. It went quite well. What was your nervousness level like in advance of the run, and how are you feeling after it?
Yeah, well, we were uptight enough, Ger. It's something like, latest exhibition was a very late developer. He was a very raw horse and he was young, and he wouldn't have had point-to-point experience. He hadn't ran that many times over hurdles, and we wouldn't have got the normal amount of schooling into him because of the lockdown. The race courses were all closed. There were no schooling races or anything like that, so all his work was done at home. And we went up to Matthew Finn's place to jump a few fences one day, and that was about it. And that's the only time he got away from home. So we were worried, and he took a bit of a chance at the second fence, which was the first ditch that he'd seen in his life. But I thought he was good after that, and we're very pleased the way he galloped to the line.
A race like that, Paul, when you know how valuable he is and how much your season, if not like your whole season, is dependent on him, an awful lot of it rests on him. And you look at Envoy Allen there making his chase debut, and people are happy to back him at 10-1 on or whatever. But as a trainer, when you have a novice who's going over fences, and are you a warrior in a race like that?
Yeah, brutal. I don't mind saying nothing else. I don't know. I think my father, in fairness to him, has nerves of steel, but I think I get it from the mother side. So no, I wouldn't be good, Johnny. With something like him that so much depends on and stuff like that. And it's just I actually went away from the phone there just to watch Envoy Allen's race, and he's such an intelligent horse. The way he jumped, the way he shortens, there's never sort of any moments with him. And now that everyone's getting to know him so well, you'd see how much, when he races as well, he's not going to kick away and win 20 lengths. But today over fences, he actually did. That was probably one of his most, impressive performances yet. He absolutely just looked a winner from such a long way out. And he's, by him there, he's going to be the horse to beat all season.
I was just making the point there. It was an article I was writing for tomorrow. Between earlier on in Wexford, your local track this week, we had Manila Indo, we had Andy Dufresne, and then on Wednesday at Punchestown, we'd series horses coming out. Cork, there's proper racing at Cork on Sunday, and obviously you have the Down Royal meet the 2 days. And I think it's actually given people at home, particularly maybe elderly people that love their jumps racing, I think it's given them a bit of a lift, because it's just really exciting to be able to see this within lockdown, that we were able to watch this proper racing, and I think your lad played a part as well.
Yeah, well, in fairness to the crew involved in managing the whole thing, it's managed very, very professional, and it gives people something to watch. And the amount of text we got, and with the small operation that we have, but the amount of the text that we got from people wishing us good luck, and then after the text you get when things go right, and I'm sure that like a Tony Mullins with the same, like Gordon would be the very same. The amount of people that are looking at this and interested in it. There's numbers coming up on my phone, some people in England and all as well, saying well done on his performance and best of luck for the season. So it's in fairness to the people that are able to keep it, the government and everyone involved. It's fantastic that we are racing, and they're making a savage effort, and it's up to us as well to sort of keep the protocol and do the thing right, and keep racing going. And I think it does give people a lift, and it gives people in built-up areas something to look at and something to talk about. And hopefully the GA matches and all will be the very same, that people stick to protocol and don't be stupid and check up the whole thing. So it's basically it's down to us just to behave ourselves and just cop on for the next couple of months.
Yeah, fingers crossed everybody does do that. We haven't a great track record of copping on collectively as a country, so fingers crossed we can all do a bit of that. Can I ask you a little bit about the science of moving a horse through the progression that you've done with latest exhibition? So again, for we have a lot of people who are kind of casual enough racing fans and don't really understand how these horses ultimately become chasers. So last year it was over hurdles. This year the horse just gets a bit stronger and a bit more? Do you have to go chasing this year? Is it like, or is it just that's where a horse this good needs to be?
Yeah, no, it's not sort of rocket science, Ger. It's something that, you know, the horse tells you what's going to happen, really, and that's why I always find it's always a little bit dangerous making plans and stuff like that, because you don't know what's around the corner, and then you have to change plans. So you'd want to have 5 plans, really. But I mean, you know, you'd see the guys would say the point-to-point men now, and especially, and I'm not being biased in saying this, it's the fact, and that's the way it is. But you see the lads in the Wexford lads here in the point-to-points, the way they buy the young 3-year-olds, which was unheard of years ago in Ireland. They're getting horses to win 4-year-old point-to-points that wouldn't be given to a trainer until they were 6, 10 and 15 years ago. And it's all about the schooling and the grounding that horses are getting now. And there's times with a hurdler that when they jump hurdles, to be a champion hurdler, you have to be jumping low and fast, and you have to be just electric over your hurdles, not to be getting too high. And then if you keep that horse in its 2nd season hurdling, or their 3rd season hurdling, they tend to just get that way, and they fashion themselves that way, that it's possibly, over the years, it's been proven that it's not great to leave them too long hurdling if you want to make a chaser, because they just tend to get that little bit low, and if they hit a few fences earlier on in their chasing career, then they could get a bit cowardly and not end up reaching the standard that they had done over hurdles. And that's the main point. When you look at the stars of years gone by, the like of the brilliant Limestone lad, who was a brilliant hurdler for years, but he probably never ran to 20 pounds of his hurdle rating over fences, because he spent so long over hurdles. And there's times just that's the way it gets in a horse's mind, that they just, if they stay hurdling too long, they mightn't have the appetite or the bottle for the bigger fences. And
the bigger fences is the bigger races and bigger prize money, and so that's where you want all your best horses to end up. Is that right?
Well, it's not necessarily the bigger, you know, it's the prestige maybe of the Gold Cup, that it's the adult horses after coming through their racing career that they end up in a Gold Cup, which is the best race for adult chasers, we'll say. And I mean, but then again, you have the likes of Istabrack and those guys, are, you know, those real good hurdlers that were legends as well, and they never jumped the fence. So I mean, it's all a matter of opinion, and basically, you know, I wouldn't mind having a 2 or 3 time champion hurdler in the yard either. To me, it's the very same as, what's your favourite race in the Olympics? Is it the mile, or is it the 100 metres, or is it the 400 metres, or is it the 400-metre hurdles? Or, you know, so it's a matter of an opinion, what you want your horse to do. And that's why it's great when owners have an opinion about where they'd like to end up. And it's basically what the owner wants.
Okay, that's I forgot about that kind of very important part of the decision-making process, because if most owners think that they have a potential Gold Cup horse on their hands, eventually they're like, let's go that route.
Absolutely. And then, you know, if the horse ends up that you just think he's not a good enough jumper, and then, you know, it's interesting when you hear the likes of the Paul Townends or that talking about, you know, the good horses that are riding and stuff, and they, you know, they can be horses like the Storyteller, those guys that are not magnificent jumpers, but they still come out and give grade 1 performances, and, you know, and that's just the way it is. And that's mainly the bottle of the horse, that he's able to make mistakes and still come back hungry enough to go and take on the next fence. And that's all down to the horse.
And so, as Latest Exhibition got good last season at hurling, did you always have it in your head that this was a horse that was eventually going to go chasing?
Well, he looks like that. He's a, you know, he looks like a chaser. He doesn't look like a hurdler. And you know, basically, I thought that the way he takes on his fences, hopefully to God that things will go right, and it all depends. The very same as anyone, whether it's a jockey, whether it's a rugby player or a footballer or whatever you are, it's all about bottle, and about when you make your first mistake, or if you get your first fall, how you get up and dust yourself off and go again. And it's their pain threshold and their attitude after that. And you know, that's basically, there's nothing much you can do. That's up to the horse's mentality. If he's willing to get up and go again and forget about the mistake or forget about the bit of pain, It's basically, that's what it's down to.
A lot of that, Paul, what you're describing sounds like the art of training. In terms of the science of actually making sure that the horse knows how to get up over the higher fences, how do you practice that? How did you get him to a point where you were happy going to the second last, that this is the first ditch he's ever seen, but actually I know because we did a certain amount of work? What is that work, and how do you make that happen?
Well, there's different, it's the very same as some people, if they're training a horse for the English national, they like to school over the entry fences. Some guys don't, because they think it just might maybe frighten them a little bit, and they go, when they see it the second time, they mightn't handle it or run as well over the entry fences. And it basically, again, it's all down to the horse. I mean, talking to some of the lads and talking to Gordon, and that the lads weren't that confident about Tiger Roll on his first Grand National trip. And yet he handled it brilliant, and he went along and he won, and he's possibly the best horse we've seen since Red Rum as regards the national. And he's a small little individual, but he has great guts for the game, and it just goes to show you that it's not the obvious one that might be the one. It's the sort of as I said, it's normally down to their attitude, and he tells you what you're going to do. There's animals there you wouldn't have maybe schooled that much at all, but they're just naturally intelligent and naturally good and naturally brave. And with the like of those, there's no point in keeping going at home to try and make them make mistakes. If they're not doing it and they're doing it right first, don't keep trying to make. I wouldn't try to keep schooling to see how would they react if they did make a mistake. You sort of get over that if it happens, and then go about that. But I don't try and keep them jumping until they make mistakes.
The other part about this whole thing, to have a successful season, sometimes you've got to get them into races where they're up against the absolute top quality, so you can see where they are, and also to inspire them to put in those great performances. And then other times you need to kind of nurse them through the schedule. Like, how do you go about that with a horse like Latest Exhibition, and what is your ultimate plan here this year?
Well, the ultimate plan, I suppose, would be, to end up in Cheltenham again. That's where the lads would love to be. The lads that bought him would love to end up there again. And that's where we'll aim for. Other than that, we'll try to, to be honest about it, there's no point in, you try to avoid Envoy Allen until you get there. Please God, touch wood, if we stay in one piece. But we're going to sort of pick the races that we think that suit our horse, and that's basically it. We're not going to dip and dodge and dive too much. We'll just try and sort of pick the tracks and pick the races that suit our horse. And maybe last year in Cheltenham, I thought that the horse possibly should have won the race. He got the run of the race. Brian gave him a super ride. He jumped well. Nothing went wrong, and he still didn't win. So we're looking at where we can improve maybe for this year, and hopefully we will. Maybe the couple of hard races. Every race he had was a hard race. He'd a hard race to beat Andy Dufresne. He'd a tough race the day he won the Grade 1 in Leopardstown, and maybe that all came a little bit too soon for Cheltenham plans. That he just, hopefully he's a length or two better than he was in Cheltenham. Hopefully.
That race as well, just when you see the horses that fought it out, losing his front shoe or whatever as well, and they're all kind of, I suppose, exciting prospects for the season ahead. But it must have been a big relief that he went to Cheltenham. He absolutely responded to the call, beating the neck, and you've no fear about going back there, and you can kind of almost set your clock back from 12 months from there back to the start of his chase campaign and aim for the RSA chase or whatever. Yeah,
that's it. And we'll sit down and hopefully make as good a plan as possible. He didn't, not make an excuse, because, as I said, he got the run of the race and he was bet by a better horse on the day, but hopefully didn't eat great over there. There's little things that just we're trying to pick things to make it better for next year, and he'll be a bit more streetwise, and hopefully, to God, he'll be a better horse over a fence, and that's what we're hoping, John.
Yeah, and in terms of how did he come out of the race as well? Because you're starting back the season. It's his first start over fences. Was he in good nick after it?
Yeah, he came out of the race very well. Brian was very pleased with him. He's not a horse that, he's not a heavy horse, and he he doesn't need that much work really. He never left home here. He went away. He went away to Andrew Laha's gallop there a couple of times, and that's basically it. And went to Mahi Flynn's, some similar gallops to our own, just to get him away in the box and get him away from home. And he's not a hard horse or not a difficult horse to get fit. You know, some horses, you know, if they're bridle horses at home, you could go and get beaten with those horses because they just get things too easy at home, and the whole thing is too easy for them, and that's why some of those horses maybe get bet in their first run of the season unexpectedly. But you know, as it goes on, you learn, and it's just we're still learning, unfortunately, as old as we are.
Do you get the impression from Brian that he's enjoying the experience of being involved with the horse? Because I suppose, with due respect to him, he's had an interesting career, and he hasn't had that many top-class horses under him in the last few years, and now he has one.
Yeah, well, sure, listen, I mean, it's all, you know, Brian is a top-class jockey, and I've no doubt that Brian Cooper is going to come back again. He is back, and I think it's just a question of staying injury-free, and I think there's no way we've seen the end of Brian Cooper, and I don't know. I'd let him ride anything anyway. I think he's a top-class jockey, and that's my opinion.
I was just thinking, Johnny, you bring up Brian Cooper. I was going to do it as well. It's like it's a brilliant comeback story, really, for both of you, and it's interesting that you're both having a renaissance together at the same time. And I think, you know, like we love stories on this show, and everybody who follows sport loves stories. And watching you have a great horse again was a real thrill over the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, you know, well, the one thing about it is, you know, I'd have to thank the owners that I have in the yard, and they know who they are. You know, it's a very small amount of owners that we have in the yard now, and I just, and it basically, without them, we were gone. And basically, without that's it. I just can't thank those guys enough. And because without the horses, you're at nothing, and you can have the best setup in the world. You can have hygiene-wise, feed-wise, staff-wise, you can have the best in the world. But if you haven't got the ammunition or haven't got the horses, you're at nothing. And that's it. So I have to thank those guys to be able to do that, and to be able to hold on to Lace Exhibition or buy another Lace Exhibition. Those guys have went and bought young stock again, and hopefully we could have another one, and that's what you have to try and keep striving for, to try and keep replacing empty boxes and replacing horses that are injured. It's not easy, but thankfully we've owners that are willing to do that, and that's why that's why the whole thing is so positive.
How have you found it recently? We'll say you're on about the, you know, people buying new stock and all that. We're talking about Latest Exhibition going over to Cheltenham in March, and at this stage we can't say for certain that there'll be a crowd at Cheltenham, which is extraordinary, but that's where we're at the moment. And in terms of owners who can't go racing, prize money is obviously down. How have you? There's in crisis, I suppose, there's opportunity as well, because a lot of horses that are, you know, they're not the top class horses, so the bracket of horses that aren't the worst class but aren't the highest class, a lot of that middle milieu can be sold at cheap money. And how have you found the sales, and are people still willing to kind of look for that Latest Exhibition going forward?
I think they are, Johnny. You know, like, I mean, I know there's no point in being, I wouldn't be involved in businesses as such to know how things are going, but I don't think that I'd be hoping to God that the whole thing is not that bad. I don't think the whole thing is that doom and gloom. Like, I mean, the arse didn't fall out of the sales this year. The nice animals still made decent money. The ones that weren't going to make decent money didn't make it, but they still got out. And I don't think the whole thing was that bad. And I still think it's holding on. There was maybe a couple of disappointing sales, but I still think that the horses that are winning their point-to-points impressively are going to still get paid for, and the boys will still get paid for them, deservedly so. And the good ones will make good money, and I think that it's still positive enough.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting, because, like, I've spoken to a few people. You might get a horse now for 20 grand that in other years might have been 50 grand. And I think out of all of this, I think the sales, there's every chance that someone will fall on a horse for connections you wouldn't necessarily expect. And I think the jumps game badly needs that. You know, it needs, I think it's nearly more important in the jumps game that the winners are spread around rather than, like, if you have absolute quality and top class horses and they're improving the quality of the horse, I actually don't think that matters to the heart of the jumps game as much as the likes of you having a horse, Mouse Morris having a horse, that sort of thing, and different owners enjoying the bounty, like Princess Zoe, for example.
Absolutely. And, before I came online with you, like, I mean, I just see that the Shark Hanlon's mare won the listed hurdle up in down Royal today. And I mean, that's another story there, 650 or 700 quid over to sales. And now she's come along and she's won her maiden hurdle, novice hurdle. And now she's come out and she's beat a Gordon's good filly in Down Royal today. And I mean, those are the stories that I think that should keep lads alive, and that it is possible. And it just goes to show you, no one thought it was possible on the flat, and Paddy Keogh came along and Tony Munns came along and did it with Princess Zoe, went on and won their Grade 1. And I mean, that's powerful stuff, and it just goes to show you that it is possible at both on the flat and over jumps.
Does it all kind of naturally lead in between Paddy Keogh and yourself and this exhibition to Wexford basically winning the hurling this year to kind of cap it all off?
Oh, well, one thing. It'll probably be, if that happened, it would be probably hard to lock us down, I'd say. The guards would want to be they would want to be getting plenty of overtime, I think, to keep an eye on us, Johnny.
That is fair enough.
The biggest risk to public health is Wexford winning the hurling and Mayo winning the football. We all know that, but we're not saying it. So just, I'm saying there's islands off the coast. Everybody can go off, have a fortnight on the island and come back when the COVID's over, when their own COVID's over. Paul, these are good times. When, just to briefly revisit the bad times, was there a point where you thought, right, this is it, I'm going to go and do something else, the game's not working for me here?
No, I didn't. Now, I'd always sort of have an old lip on me going around at times, but no, because in fairness, I left off school and I 15 years, so I wasn't going to become a solicitor or be a judge or anything anyway. But no, I never really thought of that. I never thought of that. I don't think, and if it ever did, I just said it to James a couple of times. If the two of us are left here on our own again, so we'll tip away and something will happen. So basically, that's it. That's the one good thing we have. At least, we're in the home place here, and we know if it all went down to very little again, our overheads would be all reduced as well, and we tip away and we get another good horse and get going again. So I'd have no question of ever leaving it.
Well, there's the struggling artist who does the thing the whole time and then eventually creates the masterpiece. Like, that's what you've talked about is exactly the same definition, really, of an artist leading a life. And this is my life. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to immerse myself in it. And at the end, something's going to happen. And you reach a level of excellence and proficiency where, when the opportunity presents itself, you take it. And it seems like you're in the midst of the sweet spot of that, and only starting out now with this horse as well.
Yeah, well, you see, just at the end of the day, I know it's all about the one horse, but you see, you have to, the way we are, we're always thinking about another one in case something happens, because if you're completely cocooned around the one horse and just looking at him every day, if something happens to him, there's no point in all of us jumping into the coffin with him. So, I mean, we've other ones out there now that we're hoping to God that they'll be the same, they'll go down the same route. So we're all the time trying to make another one of them, or hoping to get another one of them. So, you have to be realistic about these things, and every time they go out, there's always a chance of something happening. So even though he's by far the best horse we have, we still have to think of more of him here as well, and that's the way we look at it.
It is a very addictive game, isn't it? When you think of it's almost like the lad that likes a bet. He's struggling for winners, but he gets a winner, and everything is kind of good again. And I'd say it must be like that as a trainer. It's just, you'll have bad years and you struggle during the recession, but when even getting a winner at a poor enough track, or so-called poor track, and the prospect of something coming along, it's the hope that kind of keeps you going as well, I'd say, Paul.
Oh, absolutely, Johnny. Sure, I mean, it's there's no doubt it's a little bit foolish in a way how it just sort of lights you up inside. I mean, if I was flexible enough, there's no doubt when your man jumped the last medal and won well the other day, even though it was only beginners chasing Punchestown, if I had been able to do backflips or moonwalks across the yard, I would have. And you know, it just makes it far easier to get up in the morning and stuff, and just make it worthwhile, and you know that by the lads in the yard as well, and they, you know, it just makes it worthwhile when things work out. And you know, when the few winners we'd have at this part of the season compared to some of the other trainers, it just gives the lads in the yard, you know, that they know they're sitting on something that won yesterday or ran well yesterday, and it just gives the whole thing a bit of a lift to know them as well, that they're not just wasting their time getting wet and getting drenched and getting cold. And I know they're getting their wages, but it's great for an old yard as well to have something deep, a couple of decent horses in it that lads can enjoy, and because they're all in it for the love of it, you know.
You've 4.5 months to learn how to moonwalk properly for Cheltenham. So, I mean, if your horse can win in Cheltenham, you should be able to learn how to moonwalk in the meantime, Paul.
I do any sort of a walk you want, Ger.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Are you training the GA team? Did a little bird tell us that you were involved with one of the local hurling teams?
Yeah, we're in our own local club here, Davistown, Courtnacuddy. Myself and Murty Dempsey and David O'Connell. Unfortunately, we hadn't any success this year, so we were out of it sort of snappy enough. But we have a great bunch of young lads coming on next year. I'd say, in fairness, there's 6 or 7 young minors to come onto the team next year, and I'd say they're possibly the best minor team I'd say that Davistown ever had. So hoping to God in the next couple of years will be a better outfit, and I think the lads are well capable of doing it. But they're a great squad of lads, and it's a great bit of crack as well. And
is that like just a diversion, or is that actually, you know, I understand the lifestyle element of being involved in horse racing, but sometimes hurling people just can't stop being hurling people as well?
I don't think you ever sort of stop being a GA person or a hurling person, you know, and there's a great bunch of lads involved. We've syndicates there from local club, Rathnure, Rapparees, Gate, great crowd of lads from St. Mary's down there with a horse as well, and there's a couple of GA syndicates in the yard that are, you know, right sets of lads, and they're, you know, it's a different, you know, they're just a bunch of lads that are interested in sport, and now, of course, to be interested if the horses won as well.
Yeah, so that'd help.
That would help, but you know, that just goes to show you the way things are as well. Them lads sort of new into getting involved, at the way we were in a sort of a lockdown situation, and it's no crack for them, and they can't even go to the pub now to look at the old horse running if he is running and stuff. But they're still willing to put a few quid away and put a few quid into it, and it just goes to show the depth of the people we have in Ireland, that they love their sport, and that's why I think it's fantastic that we're able to keep doing it still.
Yeah, because it does seem like, particularly in that part of the world, that there's quite a significant GA horse racing crossover. You know, obviously Jim Bulger's a big GA man as well, right?
Oh, Jim is probably the biggest hurling man in racing, and he's little like Paul, just waiting for Wexford to win All Ireland. But Jim has actually invested money in hurling, and also that hurling for charity stuff that he's done. Massive hurling fan, and it'll be I'd say he might even take up the points if they win the All Ireland.
Probably. I doubt that now. I doubt that. Oh, no.
That's me blacklisted from his phone anyway.
I'd say no. He'd have a far better chance of getting Jim to move and walk if he wins the Derby.
What is actually next? I mean, we know the long-term plan now for latest exhibition, but what? How soon again do you think? Do you have that plan already made?
Yeah. Well, listen, we said with Punchestown we get him out there, and there's the Florida Pearl back in Punchestown, or the Drinmore. You know, more than likely Envoy Allen will go to the Drinmore, and you know, we're not going to rule out that yet. But if ground and everything is okay in Punchestown and all, which more than likely it will be, it's fantastic track, and you know, that's where we might go and maybe avoid him. But if it came up that it was too quick or something for some reason, if the weather dried up or something, and the ground even suit us there, we're going to go to where we think our horse will suit our horse best. And you know, that's the plan so far. Those are the 2 races we have in our head, and we don't like to look too far beyond that. We just get the next day and go the next day. The first part of his campaign is done and dusted, and if he hadn't have won that, we'd have been gone on to another beginner's chase, and those would have been put in the back then again. But so far, the plan is in motion.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a plan is working so far. Paul, great to have you with us today. Congratulations on the horse and on everything going so well at the moment. Thanks a million for talking to us.
Best of luck, lads. Thanks a million.
It's Paul Nolan there talking to us about his horse latest exhibition and the general well-being of the game at the moment. Friday Night Racing brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Johnny, I don't know if you were there at the start when I was making that comparison about Princess Zoe in the yard and something like Latest Exhibition coming along, and it just giving everybody a lift. It's like,
Oh yeah, it's different gravy. You know, it's your whole. If you just don't have that good horse, sure, it's kind of. I imagine, you know, you go in and you do your work and you enjoy it, but just the buzz of having the potential. Like that horse now could well be taking on Andy Dufresne in the Drinmore, because the way Gordon was talking after Down Royal, and he's already beaten him over hurdles. And stranger things have happened than him winning the Gold Cup, and that's like a year and a half, if not more, down the line. So it's just having something to look forward to. I think it stands to reason in life that, you know, if Monday to Friday might be clocking in and clocking out, but if you have something to do with the weekend, it keeps you going. And he's just exciting. And you know, they've had their taste of good horses in the past, Accordion Etoile and so on, but they don't come around often. It's hard for the smaller yard, which Paul had become, and it's just fantastic. I mean, the Princess Zoe story is completely bonkers, but Latest Exhibition is a fantastic horse, and I think Jumps fans this week, seeing him run and seeing Andy Dufresne run, seeing Envoyalent today, you know, Ballyadam tomorrow, seeing Sam Crow coming back, Battle Over Doyen, seeing Presented Percy tomorrow, seeing other good horses during the week. It's just a great time, and even if you're not necessarily involved with the horse yourself, we all can feel some sort of interest at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think the fact that these horses, we get to see them over a couple of years develop and evolve, and that was why it was interesting to hear the progression of the horse from the hurdles to chasing, and I think hopefully everybody was enlightened a little bit by that. Let's move on, because we've got to bring everybody the bad, but at this point, fairly common news. The Tote Irish Inter-Jockeys Fund spends another week at €2,310 as Impatient Partner failed to deliver at Galway last Saturday. What happened, Johnny?
He was well backed and he wasn't good enough. I think he finished fourth. Disappointing, and I think he's one of them horses that he's definitely one of these horses that I'll abandon and he'll now start winning races. That's, you know, but you kind of almost accept that. Yeah, so he was a bit disappointing. It's actually just riddled with options this weekend, Jar. The racing is so good. So I'm going to go with Mouse Morris this week. Foxy Jacks. I was talking to him. Mouse is a fellow we should get on actually in the near future, because he's all of a sudden he doesn't train for Jigginstown anymore, but he's gotten a lot of good horses and he's a really nice hand Sunday at Cork. And Foxy Jacks, I spoke to him after he won his beginner's chase at Cork 2 weeks ago, and he really likes this horse, and I think he's going to be overpriced, because on ratings he's a bit defined, jumps really well. That's the 246 at Cork, very good novice chase, but I think he's going to give you a big run for your money, and it could be a very good day for Mouse. A couple of very nice runners in the maiden as well. And it was interesting when I rang him the day I rang him, the first thing he bemoaned was Galway losing to Mayo. So he's still a very proud Galway man, notwithstanding everything that's going on. Yeah, well, I mean, it was a horrific beating they took. So your bet this week is Foxy Jacks in the 246 at Cork on Sunday. Yeah, we'll go each way on this one because it's a very competitive race, but yeah, good chance. Okay, visit tote.ie where customers can enjoy the Tote guarantee. It's Tote price versus SP on all Irish and UK racing. Is there anything else this weekend that you think everybody should be... Oh, well, I mean, it did feel a bit like, Rodney and Del Boy turning up at the funeral wearing the Batman gear there, with Paul, you and me dressed like absolute imbeciles, and Paul Nolan just dressed, absolutely normal. So maybe we should get our guests to... What are you even wearing, by the way? It's an edamame pea suit. Right. I had 2 minutes to come up with something. You had... presumably all day. The week, Johnny. You had the week. We told you earlier in the week. Well, in any event, right? So we're talking about stuff to keep you going, and if you want an anti-post bet for the winter, right? I love this Bolshoi Ballet to win the Derby for Aidan O'Brien. He's got a beautiful name. He's a gorgeous looking horse. But I'm back presenting Percy to win the Gold Cup, Ger, at the ripe old age of 10. And if he is to win the Gold Cup, he'd probably want to be winning or going very close tomorrow. His first start for Gordon Elliott in the Philip Reynolds colours, running in an unbelievably competitive feature race at Down Royal against Delta Work and Chris's Dream. We also have the gorgeous Sam Crow back in action. It's just... as much as it's kind of a little bit miserable at the moment and November's closing in, if you've racing on of that quality, all your problems go out the window. So enjoy the weekend. It's going to be a fantastic race. 33-1 is the price of presenting Percy. Yeah, I like that. I mean, he's a 10-year-old, but to be honest, like, the age wouldn't bother me that much because he hasn't been over-raced, and I think there's there are a couple of horses who've gone from Pat Kelly to Gordon for Philip Reynolds, and they've won. One of them is called Paranoid, and he's running tomorrow over fences. He's already won at Galway. But two of them have made a significant improvement. And I've made this point a few times. Pat Kelly did not have a winner since Presenting Percy won the Galmoy the previous season, going into the Gold Cup last year. So he was still bang there when he fell 2 out. And I think under the great man's tutelage, you'll have far worse 33-1 shots. And if he wins tomorrow, we can get a bit jiggy.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Good stuff as ever, whatever that costume was. Thanks very much for that, Johnny. You made the efforts, as everybody can see. We'll see you again next week. So every Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, we stream Friday Night Racing live on all of our social channels. That is the OTB Sports app on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, on YouTube as well. And then, of course, every Friday evening from 8 o'clock on News Talk on Off the Ball. We'll see you next week.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.